video game bosses. One of the most common and cliche countdowns across the internet. Might as well throw my wrench into this hot mess. When it comes to boss battles, they always test your might and skill while playing the game. Unlike several others who complain, they don't matter whether they are fairly difficult or require minimal effort. If it can be done, it shows you've accomplished something. And what matters most to me is how engaging and fun it is, without the irritating cheapness. Besides, there aren't too many that made me want to come back to them, so they're like diamonds in the rough. Prepare yourselves for a top 15! No mini-bosses, optional bosses, super bosses, nor final bosses are allowed. They must all be mandatory from games I played with one per franchise. Let's see which boss shall attain the gold in this gauntlet.
Meddling child.
What the hell are you doing here? Drop down!
Run amok.
Whoa, whoa, whoa!
Run amok.
One more! Here we go!
Well, here's a game I never brought up until now. Has anyone remembered the NES classic, the 3D Battles of Worlds Runner? I do. One of the most difficult games I encountered when I was really young. Thank you, hair-pulling handmen! But the serpent bosses, though, I thought they were pretty cool. Keep in mind, this was the pioneering days of 3D gaming. Even before the irritating heavy 3D goggles, and even before the Super FX chip. But the Mode 7 capabilities were still there. Anyway, these guys were awesome. Whether they'd interact with the protagonist during the intro, or just plain fighting them. They all come in different colors the further you go into the game, but each one seems irresistible. Always going in an arching pattern as you shoot basically from anywhere. Also, you have a time limit to wipe them out, simply by shooting the head, even though their bodies interfere. Sometimes if there's more than one, the time limit refills when it's down, and they go sporadically once they are defeated. Dragons? Snakes? Don't care. The Serpent Beasts was just one of those bosses I enjoyed so much. Although I never wanted to decimate them regardless. Also, I used to call them not as bosses, but last guys. Kind of a weird term here.
Run amok.
Here we go! One more!
Run amok. Drop it.
Get a load of this! And another!
A lot of gamers, including Fawful's Minion, always prefer Meta Ridley as their all-time favorite boss fight in Metroid. But since I never got into the Prime Saga, and always preferred the 2D games, there was always one that stood out like a sore thumb. The Ridley rematch in Super Metroid. This boss battle is just as iconic and intense as the aforementioned fight. And this is indeed Samus's second brawl with Mother Brain's best crony. He has stolen the baby Metroid and destroyed the Sarah Space Lab, prompting Samus to pursue it on Zebes. Once she enters Norfair, she located this infamous lair, leading her to the most ball-busting battle that ever outclasses Mother Brains. He doesn't mess around, and he's as sharp as his wits and claws. than with any space pirate. And it almost feels like you're literally battling Lucifer here. The environment in Lethal War is certainly a backbreaker, and it's never easy to execute unless you happen to be a pro gamer. Those that are competitive and hardcore experts. Which is why it's only number 14. The frustrating difficulty can break the experience if you are a casual. So it's best to save up your resources however you can. And lest we forget a guide handy. Still, once you manage to conquer your arch nemesis, it always feels so satisfying. Sadly, this won't ever be the last of him.
Run amok.
Here we go. One more.
Run amok. Chopper.
Get a load of this. And another.
It was difficult to find a satisfying boss battle from the bouncer, as most can be as intense as Ridley and are just as cheap with the ragdoll physics, and no response time. But much like the dragon, the rematch of Unmasked Magetsu is where it's at. Your third and final battle with the psychopath is a tad irritable, though just as rewarding. As you try to breach the satellite control center called the Gallios, the maniacal intruder leaps on board your unsuspecting air carrier and revels in your demise. Unlike the majority of battles due to the small arena, only 2 bouncers must fight him off. While you must choose who shall be the pilot, personally Volt should be the main man. Sion and Co. were more balanced and nimbler, and that's needed to counter and evade Magetsu's fatal and insane charges. These sporadic maneuvers can pack like an alloy punch, even his collapsing fake-out and his torpedo tackle. And if you happen to collide with your partner on this limited platform, combined with the ragdoll physics, it's gonna freaking sting. The right-hand man of Mikado's special forces could even make the Joker blush. His insane and irate persona and moves can pack a wallop and be just a one-man army. Which is why I recommend to be at least level D. Good luck having the trio prepared. And I think you must be decent as a multiplayer fighter. Also, I dig his institutional theme song, and it's so epic to see him go!
Incineration, huh? You'd better get used to it where you're going.
Run amok.
Here we go. One more.
Run amok. Chopper.
Get a load of this. And another.
Just like with the bouncer, it was tricky to find a satisfying and engaging boss fight. Viper just barely made the cut, both literally and figuratively. This intimidating boss of Moranus Act 2 was never hard to miss. First off, the boss battle itself is a tough job. She'd float over the right side of the arena while also drop a few spike pillars onto you. If you happen to get too close or directly underneath her, she drops and unleashes a brutal energy wave onto the floor where you are. And in Death Team, she moves twice as fast, even if she should drop onto the floor at times. The Viper, even though she should be classified as some kind of Djinn, has brute strength and agility. And if you have low stamina, you won't have a decent time. The Stardust is usually your best bet, but if your magical prowess is limited, it won't be so simple. Especially if you go against her in professional mode. She was responsible for brainwashing the pot trippers that the master won't be there for them when they're needed. And so she conjured this pandemonium temple rigged with many tricky traps and enemies, much like a Norfair, which her turf emitted the people's stupidity and insensitivity onto you already doing your part to save them. It's no wonder I'd picture Omega from Sonic to fire upon that dangerous diva, and convinced that the people can be so cliche and inferior. Arrogance is matched by ignorance here. It's still so fulfilling once you should take that pesky piñata down and restore the naive denizens back to their senses. Especially since you're able to retrieve their pot leaves in order to relieve the plague in Cassandora. This is why I always go for the southeastern route instead of Atos. It's just more rewarding this way.
Run
Here we
amok.
go. One more.
Run amok. Chopper.
Get a load of this. And another.
Speaking of bosses that keep you on your toes, how about another that doesn't seem to get enough praise nowadays? Looks like one of my favorite rodents, Mouser, made it on here, and for good reason. The Shady Mouse is an agile and skilled, though rhythmic bomber. As I've stated in my rodents list, he'll be fought 3 times in both Super Mario Bros. 2 and its base game, in Worlds 1-3, 3-3, and 5-3. Although what I didn't mention was he'd be replaced by the Crab Claw Grip in the last stage. Just like before, Mouser has a rhythmic pattern in throwing bombs, and the player must throw them back at him before he or she should get hit by their explosions. And it would be a challenging feat for the vertically challenged like Toad or Mario. Although Tryclyde is also a good contender from Subcon as well. He happens to be more challenging than the underrated mouse, as he's a tri-headed serpent who's capable in versatility and destruction from its multiple heads and fireballs. He appears in Worlds 3 and 6, and the player must throw those heavy mushroom blocks at him, and he's often not an easy target to reach, especially with those projectiles slowing you down. Maybe his battle strategy would give Kero some pointers. Just like Mouser, he too is an outcast and is a very underappreciated boss and villain. Both of them, even as bosses, stand out the most along with Wart, even in the whole Mario juggernaut, thus both taking the 11th spot.
Run
Here
amok.
we go. One more.
Run amok. Chopper.
Get a load of this. And another.
Speaking of past contenders, the Woolies has made it as a boss in my list, specifically the 3rd boss battle in the OG Bubsy. As the Bobcat finally stops the last train and ventures through the 3rd part of the canyon, he'll find himself against another mothership. By Chapter 9 in Dances with Woolies, it kind of is. A UFO with green yarn descends, and while it soars around, it tends to drop off a series of woolies to attempt to overwhelm the cunning cat. Be careful as you attempt to jump on it and destroy it, and then after several hits, eliminate the woolies to clear the playing field. This was actually one of the boss fights I just never wanted to end as a kid. I don't know why, really. Unfortunately, with the time limit taking down, you don't really have much of a choice, even as tricky as the level can sometimes get. When I was younger though, the music, even when it ascends in key, was just as catchy, especially when I just wanted to play around with the woolies. I would just wait till there's around 5 or 4 and just leap with them while evading their advances and not get an instant kill. I always got giddy whenever that should happen, and I never had that kind of sensation with any other boss. I always had fun doing it, but nevertheless, like a stubborn kid, I still needed to be forced to get a move on. Sometimes the woolies are just too cute and fun to be missed.
Here we go. Here we go. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Here we go. Get a load of this. Give me another.
Another boss that I just never wanted to defeat was the Ankylosaurus from Joe and Mac. Much like the woolies in level 9, this was just my favorite highlight. As you may or may not know, the Ankylosaurus is my favorite dinosaur, with the pterodactyl as my second best. It's no wonder that my Mortal Kombat OC Ico has her own animality. He has a similar strategy to Silver Sonic from Sonic the Hedgehog 2, as you can't attack him while he's curled up in a spiky ball. Occasionally he would pop up and make his signature roar, which is his vulnerability. But watch it, as he can also jump and also drop while still rolling, even in place. Maybe he was inspired by Sonic, but he doesn't seem to be fast. It is a simple fight once you get the lowdown, but just like the serpent beasts and the woolies, and since it's my favorite prehistoric creature, I feel sorry on killing it. Actually, I found no rhyme or reason as to why these dinosaurs would attack Joe and Mac in the first place. Sure, they were on a mission to save the maidens from the cavemen's abuse, but come on! Maybe they drew first blood. There's just so much animal abuse here. It can just be amplifying how humans always conquer over the fauna. Or maybe it's the Red Devil's manipulation. But regardless, I hated to see the Ankylosaur fall to his demise into the lava below.
Here we go. Here we go. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Here we go. Get a load of this. Give me another.
Man, 3 in a row! Just like with the woolies and the Ankylosaur, there was yet another boss from my early childhood I didn't want to end, which also happened to have a strict time limit. Ouroboros, the Iron Ruler. The first boss of Strider, specifically the Genesis version, has a very unique concept to it. As Hiryu breaks the Kazakh's capital and the government's chambers on the first level of his journey, he comes across an awesome boss fight. General Mikiel leads the attack as he signals his soldiers to combine and form this unique weapon. Basically, it's a mechanical centipede that crawls around the arena and attacks Hiryu as it follows him around in the first fight. Ouroboros moves in a circular snake-like pattern, while swinging his 2 weapons and shooting his 3-way cannon. If Hiryu's close, sometimes it'll start moving in circles on the spot. But the best part is you can ride atop Ouroboros and strike him from behind, but its constant circling movements can make it hard. It can also start moving in reverse in order to shake Hiryu off. You also face it a second time near the final level at the 3rd moon, resurrected by Grandmaster Mayo. Although it can be used to help Hiryu reach him. I always loved riding on top and hanging beneath it, like as if it's some amusement park ride. There was just nothing else like it. No other video game has ever replicated it. I'm not a huge Strider fan, but I'll always call the Genesis version home. I don't think I consider the remake a shot. It just doesn't have that same nostalgic feel to it.
Here we go. Here we go. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Here we go. Get a load of this. Get another.
When does the nostalgia ever cease? There are 4 now! The Fantrons from the OG Starfox has always been a classic to me. Just like the Ankylosaurus, they're nostalgic, unique, and kind of cute, much like any animal. The boss before Venom on the Easy Path has a design that may be similar to a cockatrice, and it almost sounds like a bird of sorts when you should attack it. The Fantron mostly possesses laser as a weapon, as well as duplicating illusions to confuse Fox on which enemy is real. Unlike most of Andross's creations, the Fantron mostly relies on its speed and phantasmal abilities. It is quite nimble, which I really like in a character's battle style, although it doesn't take a lot of punishment well. Once it's under enemy fire, even after attempting to confuse the opponent after its rapid spins, they dissipate. And when the Fantron's down, it descends into the planet. The same strategy applies in the second portion, although it's more aggressive this time around. It moves around and transforms into its robot form, having twice the shield and unleashing fatal missiles. It seems to be more durable and cunning as well, and it used to give me quite a struggle when I was 6. If you have the Nova Bombs handy, and as long as there's no interference, it's merely smooth sailing, although I grew attached to it, much like the Ankylosaur. I used to see the Phantomtron as more of an animal of sorts, much like a bird. And with a few old duck plushies, they became my OCs, which used to help the Starfox team. Till I suddenly grew out of it when Assault was a disappointment. The music, the physique, the battle, the concept, and everything in between was what made Fantron special, despite the troubles I had as a kid, and before I encountered the horrors of Andross. Overall, the Fantrons always stood out to me in the Starfox series. If only they were made into characters for reals.
Here we go. Here we go. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Here we go. Get a load of this. Get another.
Aside from Metal Mario and the Fighting Polygon team, there's been another boss in the last hurrah installment in the Smash Bros. Series, the second subspace emissary boss, Rayquaza. My favorite legendary from Generation 3 has finally gotten the proper justice, and never butchered, until several years later. Rayquaza meets up with Dixie and attacks him, thinking he's an intruder to the lake, as he investigates the crashed R-Wing. However, thanks to Fox's quick heroism, he assists the little chimp in this epic battle. There was no other boss like it, let alone from another Pokemon. The Lord of the Ozone Layer has some decent moves. He charges across the stage with his elongated body covering quite a length, whether on the ground or in the air. He has a powerful electricity blast from his mouth. And he's a brutal tank, like with any other legendary. He can also dig, roar, and use an Iron Tail. That's more than 4 moves every Pokemon is limited with. I'm glad someone can break the shackles. Being it's an iconic Pokemon even before its Mega Evolution was introduced, there was just no other done so well. Keep on soaring high.
Here we go. Here we go. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Here we go. Get a load of this. Give me another.
King Zing is the thing to make it onto this list from the DKC juggernaut. And that's really saying something considering I happen to be a Melissa-phobic. At the last portion of Crazy Kremland, the two Kong kids enter a massive sticky beehive and enter a barrel containing Squawks' cousin, Quawks. Just before we were introduced to Starwolf, this was indeed an epic dogfight. Quawks often has a difficult time as the arena isn't very massive, and it tends to shrink upon the ceiling. King Zing takes half the hive as it chases you down, while you aim your beak to spit out eggs on his stinger at the underside. Otherwise, they bounce off his body like a ping-pong ball. Once he does, King Zing would fly faster and harder as retaliation while glowing crimson. He appears quicker to hunt down the parrot, and when he's hit again, he not only turns invincible, but also scatters 3 sets of retracting spikes, till he turns to yellow again. After several more intense attempts, without you getting hit of course, he actually shrinks into a red normal Zinger, but surrounds himself with 4 other yellow ones, which is easier to deal with anyway. If he's not defeated quickly as a yellow Zinger, they respawn, although it shouldn't be too shabby to take down. Finally, the king has fallen. Also, I just found out that King Zing is the first boss in the DKC series to use an animal buddy against one. And he actually appears in the preceding level Run Rambi Run, if he finds a secret door and he's roughly invincible, as he can't be damaged, but can be an instant kill onto you. Plus a heart-racing theme plays as you go. Just like with Creepy Crow, King Zing definitely stood out as an epic boss in the entire franchise and surpasses the Mega Zinger in the OG game Queen Bee. Quite an improvement which reached skyward, thus being in the top 5. Just like Lillian, the Twinrova from Ocarina of Time was the hot ticket in both the game and the series itself. Phantom Ganon and Bongo Bongo were indeed a close shave. Here's the meat and potatoes. Link traverses through the Spirit Temple as he restores the 5th dungeon and its sage. He first comes across Kebra Gebra as soon as he finds the Silver Gauntlets, who warns him of 2 elemental witches named Kumi and Kataki, and their magic must be deflected back at them in order to vanquish Ganondorf's surrogate moms. He then comes across a shriek by Noburo herself, as they seal her away and brainwash her later, never giving Link a chance to gift her the gauntlets. 7 years later, he encounters the evil pair face to face as they stick their iron knuckle onto him. After her defeat, yes, her as Noburo, they make her dissipate and Link chases them to their own tall arena and offer him as a sacrifice to the gifted son. The fight is on! Just like several others on this repertoire, it does certainly keep you on your toes. and this does make the mirror shield vital in all boss fights. It is a must to have while traversing through the dungeon and with this boss. You can't possibly win without it. Maybe the fire or ice arrows may help, but I'm not certain. Regardless, Kumi and Kataki each take a turn to randomly shoot either fire or ice at you. They are most definitely deadly upon contact. The shield must be precise in order to absorb their projectiles, before unleashing its volley onto the opposing sister. Once the wave hits, rinse and repeat until...
Give me the best you've got. I'll still beat you.
These two sorceresses fused together to become Twinrova, much like Gotenks in Dragon Ball Z. She would fire upon you either a fiery or cryo ball of energy, and Link must absorb 3 of the same element. If he should take on the opposing side, the shield resets itself. Their attacks are just as lethal as they were individually, so you must know when to counter or move. Once all 3 spells are used, Link fires a volley onto the horrendous hag and rushes in to make a few swipes. Keep at it and your eyes peeled till she's done for good as she separates again. They do make an infantile bicker and ascend into the afterlife, waiting to haunt him. But I'd much rather prefer to have fire and ice unleashed onto the corresponding sister, until they explode. Even unleash a sky attack to obliterate them completely. This just proves that the Hylians are a more superior species over the evil mesmerizing Gerudo.
And you still couldn't beat me with all those moves. You've lost.
Kind of an obvious choice, but out of all of them represented in the Sonic Juggernaut, this is the one that stood out. Unlike 98% on just beating up a huge badnik or elemental tyrant, this was indeed unique. Of course, you play as my all-time favorite Sonic character, Tails, keeping away a Chaos Emerald from the evil clutches of Dr. Robotnik. Pretty simple. What's not so simple is the layout of this level. Sure, it's designed just like the previous boss races against other characters, but this one keeps you on your speedy toes. You must stay away from the mad scientist, and also dash fast through waves of badniks and hovering police cars. Fly over wide, endless pits while using the wide rings to give you a boost. Maintain and balance your flight pattern, traverse through numerous paths, and hop from one skyscraper to the other, and navigate the course strategically while you beat Dr. Eggman to the goal. Unlike the versions with Sonic and Knuckles, Tails' version actually has star posts and checkpoints, making the race a breeze to continue where you left off after falling. A very fair addition here. It is, after all, the second to last stage with the High Flyer, and it was my topmost winner using both as Tails, and the setting always makes your heart race. And who can ever forget its theme song? I would surely take this even the mech levels introduced in the adventure successor. And aside from Sonic Generations, I wish it was represented in more playing as Tails or no. There was just no other boss race quite like it. Oh man, I'd rather lick a toad than not include this epic boss fight of Reptile and his snake from Mortal Kombat Shaolin monks. This is just the golden standard of all boss battles in the entire Juggernaut. All those who come close are often final bosses anyway. Maybe the Deadly Alliance and Kintaro in the reboot, but...
You can't speak in these things.
Well, looks like I found my own running gag. Anyway, Reptile and his snake was just too damn hard to resist. At the lair at the end of the deadly living forest, set up much like the exterior of Kraid's hideout in Metroid, Liu Kang and Kung Lao finally meet up with the crafty crony of Shang Tsung. But it's never set up like the usual mano-a-mano fights. Far from it. Instead, Reptile first leaps onto his monstrous pet snake, but it doesn't attack you outright. It just slithers around the arena as you figure out how to interact with it, and use the tall structures to collapse onto the advancing adder. With the Fists of Ruin, the heroes bash through numerous obstacles to take down the Predator, while also avoiding its lethal charges. But it's only half the battle. As they leap away from the wreckage, they land onto a small acetic pool, and then we get to fight the main assailant. This was without doubt one of the most trickiest boss fights in all of Shaolin monks, regardless of which combatant you pick. Reptile is no slouch, unleashing his uncanny prowess with sprays of acid up close, some of the usual swipes, and when he's invincible, especially releasing series of those unpredictable energy balls. This guy is as fast, sneaky, and flexible, like any other serpent, and you must be on a decent level before confronting him. Kung Lao may just be the better choice on account of his tornado kick, the hat throw, and teleport. Or maybe I'm just a fangirl of him. Once he's been taken down, this happens as the most satisfying finishers in all boss fights. This boss battle was a doozy and a diamond in the rough, as it's one of the most epic moments in my MK Chronology series. This is also a requirement as you gain his Sete, aka the wall climb ability, and he's one of the bosses you must beat to progress to Xiao's arena, much like those golden statues in Super Metroid. I wonder if Shaolin Monks is actually based off of Metroid Mania. Alright. Whew. We finally counted down from 15 to 2. But before we get to my utmost all-time favorite boss ever, let's bring out some honorable mentions.
that's the way it's supposed to be.
At last you've come.
The giant cannot be stopped.
You can. This will be your doom.
You again.
Our master Venus gifted us with life.
To rob you of yours.
How I yearn for this. When last we met, you taught me a great truth. That many are more powerful than one. I'll restore you to full strength. Now, show us what power you possess!
Oh yeah, bring it on!
I'm sure you've been wondering where Final Fantasy would land, let alone my favorite installment. Well, here you are. This is the best boss fight, as well as boss rush ever made, hands down. No other boss rush has ever come close. Not even those in Actraiser, not even Mega Man X5. The Elemental Archfiends are both challenging and awesome, especially since they interfere in shutting down the Giant of Babel. Basically, this is just the ultimate test on how much you know on how to deal with the Evil Four. All in one battle. First off is of course the Despote of the Dead's Vermiglio. Just like before on Mount Ordeals, he counters fire magic with Curse. So it's best to summon Ifrit, have Rosa heal the team along with Protect for mislethal hits, Edge throwing junk or casting his Nujitsu, have Cecil alternate between healing and attacking, though watch out for his counters, and have Hisoya use Cure Magic to damage the foe. It's best to take it slow, as you might slip up if you should use your previous attack on the next contender, the Drowned King Cognazo. Always be aware of the fatal tidal wave, just like his fight in Baron. Rosa is vital for healing duties, maybe even casting slow to bide some time before his destructive hits and waves. Of course, Rama along with Thundaga is super effective, along with Cecil's offense, and Edge's throws and blitz. Blink isn't too shabby if Rosa has nothing better to do. By the time he shall withdraw into his shell, keep at it as his heals can barely work. Just be aware of his tsunamis, though. Eventually, the Empress of Wind, Barbaricia, steps up to the plate. And this mother is nasty! Just like in the Tower of Zot, she retains her wrath. But, unlike the previous fight, she's permanently locked in her tornado form, since you no longer have Kane in the team and disable it with his jump. She's completely immune to physical moves, but whatever you do, never attack her as she counters with the destructive lightning, wiping out your whole team in one go. Just be wary of her Stone Touch and Maelstrom moves, so having Cecil and Rosa heal is essential, while Edge may throw his butt off. Rosa casting Holy at times is not a bad idea. Fusoya doing the same too, and Rydia summoning the Mist Dragon is your best option. Once you've managed to hang by the teeth, the Altar Flame Rubicante remains. His cloak staying closed is an absolute must, as Inferno can wreck your team in a heartbeat. Have Edge steal multiple times, and have Rosa cast haste onto him with slow on the Fiend. Rydia's Titan along with hers and Fusoya's Quake shall do the deed, with Cecil attacking and healing. Speaking of curing, the hot-headed YouTuber can use Blizzara, but since we're dealing double damage, it ain't too bad.
It's over!
And that takes care of them all. Overall, it provides us the excellent boss rush in all of Final Fantasy and the entire list. They're engaging, challenging, never boring, test your might, and no other fight has ever topped it in over a decade. The former messengers of the Malbulge can't be topped, and Zima's had the right idea. It tests both sides to use the efforts of teamwork. And it's another reason why Final Fantasy IV is the better candidate, especially the DS version. I'm the Ecron writer, and the Elemental Archfiends are truly top-notch, and is the best quartet in all Final Fantasy. Bosses are designed to test your skills in a game, and they deliver and exceed. They truly define a normal boss, and a boss rush, as fun, strategic, unique, and a rare gem to not be reckoned with. Screw the Elite Four and the other fiends. They got nothing on them. Except the killjoy on dealing with the giant's unfair core at the end. Top one off for the bosses.